Sometimes, a single phone call can change everything. But it's not always the right person who answers. And when that happens, fate gets rewritten. That Friday morning, the silence in the office was heavy. The kind of silence that comes right before a storm. The kind where you can hear your own breathing. 5 a.m. The city outside was still asleep. Streets empty. Buildings dark. Just a few lights blinking in the distance. But on the 23rd floor of the Centurion Tower, someone was already working. Maria Santos was mopping the Italian marble floor with precise, mechanical movements. The same ones she'd repeated for 14 years. 5 days a week, sometimes 6. Her hands were already tired. Skin dried out from the cleaning chemicals. Her back hurt. It always hurt, but she never complained. Never. It was the job. And the job paid the bills. Paid the rent. Paid for groceries. Paid for her daughter's school. Sophie. Maria glanced over at the corner of the room. Her daughter was sitting in an oversized executive leather chair. Way too big for her. Way too expensive for anyone Maria knew. Sophie was 17. Hair in a simple ponytail. School uniform a little worn. Sneakers beat up. She wasn't supposed to be there. Maria never brought her daughter to work. Never. But the neighbor who usually watched her in the mornings had called the night before. High fever. Couldn't help. Maria had no choice. Stay quiet, okay, she'd told her on the bus. Don't touch anything. Don't talk to anyone. Just sit there until I'm done. Sophie had agreed. But now, in that huge room, she couldn't stop looking around. Glass walls. Floor-to-ceiling windows. The city view was breathtaking. Lights starting to come on. Sky still dark, but with a thin line of orange on the horizon. Abstract paintings on the walls. Expensive, no doubt. Mahogany desks. Top-of-the-line computers. Giant monitors. Everything screamed power. Money. Success. Sophie looked at her mom. Maria was down on her knees, scrubbing the floor. Hands red. Face exhausted. How many times had her mom cleaned that floor? How many times had she walked past those desks without ever sitting at one? Something tightened in Sophie's chest. It wasn't anger. It was sadness. And then, the phone rang. A loud, shrill ring. Slicing through the silence like a knife. Maria stopped instantly. Looked up. Glanced at the phone on the main desk. The CEO's desk. James Whitaker. Sophie knew the name. Everyone did. It was in magazines, newspapers, TV shows. The man who'd built an empire from nothing. The phone kept ringing. Maria looked around. No one else was there. The office was empty. Employees didn't arrive until 8. She went back to scrubbing. Faster now. Trying to ignore it. But the phone wouldn't stop. Ring after ring after ring. Sophie stood up slowly. Took a few steps toward the desk. Mom, what if it's important? Maria stopped. Turned to her daughter. Eyes serious. It's not our business, Sophie. But no one's going to answer it. Because it's not our place to answer. Sophie stared at the phone. It kept ringing. Insistent. Almost desperate. She took another step. Sophie, no. But something inside her couldn't let that phone ring into emptiness. What if it was an emergency? What if someone needed help? What if? She reached out. Picked up the receiver. Hello. Maria closed her eyes. Let out a deep sigh. On the other end, there was a brief pause. Then a man's voice. Strong. Slight foreign accent. Every word clear and precise. Good morning. I need to speak with Mr. James Whitaker. It's urgent. Sophie swallowed hard. Her voice came out shaky. He's not in right now. Silence. A silence that felt like forever. Sophie could hear her own breathing. Her heart pounding. Then the voice returned. Deeper now. More tense. Who am I speaking with? Sophie hesitated. My name is Sophie. Sophie. Do you work for Mr. Whitaker? No, sir. I was just here and the phone rang. Another silence. Sophie glanced at her mom. Maria was standing now. Hands clenched. Face pale. The voice came back, firmer. Listen carefully, Sophie. My name is Henry Keller. I'm the director of operations at Keller Industries, Berlin, Germany. And we are exactly. He paused. Sophie heard papers rustling. 43 minutes away from canceling the largest contract in Mr. Whitaker's company history. Sophie felt the air leave her lungs. If he doesn't confirm the terms right now, the deal is dead. Forever. No second chance. The German board votes at 6 a.m. Brasilia time. I need an answer. Now. The words echoed in Sophie's mind. 43 minutes. The biggest contract. Forever. She looked at the wall clock. 5:17 a.m. I can try to find him, Sophie said, voice cracking. There's no time for that. I need confirmation. Do you understand how serious this is? Sophie nodded, then realized he couldn't see her. Yes, sir. Then answer me this, Sophie. Are you willing to help? She gripped the phone tighter. Her palms were sweating. Maria stepped closer. Sophie, hang up right now. But Sophie couldn't. Something in that voice, that urgency, something told her this moment mattered. That this call wasn't an accident. What would you do in that moment? Hang up, pass the buck, run from the weight of a decision that isn't yours. Or, risk everything, for someone who didn't even know you existed. For something bigger than yourself. Sophie took a deep breath. And answered, yes, Mr. Keller. I'm willing to help. On the other end, a sigh of relief. And then, everything changed. The wall clock read 5:17 a.m. 42 minutes left. Sophie held the phone so tight her fingers hurt. She could feel the weight of the moment. Invisible, but real. Crushing. On the other end, Henry Keller breathed steadily. Controlled. Like someone used to decisions that moved millions. Sophie, he said, his voice softer now. Before we go any further, I need to understand something. Who are you? Really? Sophie looked at her mom. Maria stood a few feet away, still holding the cleaning rag. Eyes wide, terrified. I'm not a secretary, Mr. Keller. I don't work here. I'm here with my mom. She does the cleaning in this building. Silence. Sophie closed her eyes, waiting. Maybe he'd hang up. Maybe he'd yell. Maybe he'd call her incompetent for answering a phone that wasn't hers. But then, a laugh. Low, short, not mocking. Genuine surprise. Unbelievable, Henry murmured. I called to close a €68 million deal, and who answers is the cleaning lady's daughter. Sophie's cheeks burned. Shame. Anger. She wasn't sure. I can hang up if you want. No. His voice was quick. Firm. Don't hang up. The phone's in your hand now, Sophie. And the clock is still ticking. She took a deep breath. What exactly do you need? Confirmation on 3 clauses from the contract I sent Mr. Whitaker yesterday. Page 4. Items 7, 9, and 12. If he accepts the terms as written, we sign immediately. If not, we miss the window with the German board. They're boarding a flight in under 2 hours. After that, the deal dies. Sophie walked around the desk. Her old sneakers squeaked faintly on the marble. She looked at the pristine mahogany surface. Organized papers, a fancy Mont Blanc pen, a closed silver laptop, and a thick black folder. Elegant, with a gold company crest on the cover. Mom, Sophie said quietly. There's a folder here. I think it's the contract. Maria stepped back. Sophie, don't touch it. For God's sake, honey. This could get us in trouble. We could lose the job. It could be worse. But Sophie was already opening it. Inside, a thick document. Cream paper. Heavy. Headers in German and English. 2 company logos. And numbers. Lots of numbers. €68 million. Sophie had never seen that many zeros in her life. She turned the pages slowly. First, second, third, fourth page. There they were. Item 7, Item 9, Item 12. Dense paragraphs. Full of technical, legal terms. Words she could barely pronounce. Mr. Keller. I have the document right here in front of me. Great. Read them to me. Every word of those 3 items. Slowly, Sophie started. Her voice shook at first. She stumbled over words like subsidiary, operational counterparty, progressive penalty clause. But Henry didn't interrupt. He just listened. When she finished item 7, he asked for 9. Then 12. Maria moved closer, stood beside her daughter, looking at the document, not understanding any of it, but feeling something big was happening. When Sophie finished, there was a long silence. Then Henry sighed, loud, heavy. Very good, Sophie. Now listen very carefully. What I'm about to tell you could change the future of Mr. Whitaker's company. And yours too. Sophie held the phone with both hands. Those 3 clauses you just read, they're traps. Traps. Yes. Legal traps. If Mr. Whitaker accepts the terms as they are, his company loses profit margins, loses partial operational control, and becomes vulnerable to penalties that could cost millions in just a few months. Sophie frowned. But, why? Why would you put that in the contract? Henry laughed again, but this time there was something bitter in it. Because that's how the game works, Sophie. In business, you always test the other side. Always. If Mr. Whitaker accepts without questioning, we know he didn't read it properly. That he's desperate, that we can control him. But if he spots it, if he renegotiates, then we know he's sharp. That he deserves respect. Sophie felt a knot in her chest. So, you're testing him. I am. And so far, he hasn't noticed. But you're telling me this. Why? Silence. Sophie could hear his breathing on the other end. Controlled. Thoughtful. Then Henry spoke. His voice different now. Softer. More human. Because I called expecting to talk to a millionaire CEO. Someone in a $5,000 suit. Someone sitting in real leather. And instead, a 17-year-old girl answers. A girl who probably never set foot in an executive office before. But she's trying to help anyway. That, Sophie, that says a lot about character. Sophie's eyes stung. Maria put a hand on her daughter's shoulder. Squeezed gently. I can't change the contract, Mr. Keller, Sophie said, voice breaking. No, you can't. But you can leave a message. Sophie looked around, saw a notepad next to the phone. Grabbed it. Grabbed the pen. I'm ready. Henry started dictating. Slowly. Every word mattered. Sophie wrote. Her handwriting shaky. Simple. But clear. She wrote it all down. The clause numbers. The traps. The warning. The urgency. When she finished, she checked the clock. 5:31 a.m. 29 minutes left. Done, Mr. Keller. Now put that paper right in the center of his desk. Where he can't miss it. And Sophie. Yes. Pray he gets here in time. The call ended. Sophie stood frozen, holding the paper, hands shaking. Maria looked at her daughter. Then at the paper. Then at the open folder on the desk. Honey, you did what you could. Sophie folded the paper carefully. Placed it dead center on the desk. Right on top of the laptop keyboard. Impossible to miss. But one question pounded in her head. What if he doesn't get here in time? What if he ignores the note? What if, had she done the right thing? Or had she just ruined something she didn't even understand? Maria touched her arm. Come on, we need to finish up and get out of here before anyone shows up. Sophie nodded, but as they left the room, she looked back one last time. At that paper, at that desk, at that world that would never be hers. And whispered softly, please, see the note. The clock kept ticking, and the fate of millions was in the hands of a girl no one noticed. And a note no one expected to find. 6:43 a.m. Sophie and Maria had left over an hour earlier. The bus swayed through the still empty city streets. Maria stared out the window. Quiet, lost in thought. Sophie sat beside her, eyes fixed on her own hands. She couldn't stop thinking about that paper. Those words she'd written. Had he seen it? Had he made it in time? Or had it all been for nothing? Maria took her daughter's hand. Squeezed gently. Stop thinking about it. You did what needed to be done. But Sophie couldn't stop. Meanwhile, on the 23rd floor of the Centurion Tower, the office was completely different. Lights on, AC running, people rushing around, phones ringing, printers humming, voices overlapping, the controlled chaos of a normal workday. James Whittaker walked in at 6:43. Late. He was never late, but this morning it happened. All-night meeting, 3 hours of sleep, quick shower, unexpected traffic. He was exhausted. Impeccable gray suit, navy tie, polished Italian shoes. But his face showed the fatigue. Deep circles under his eyes. Tight jaw, bloodshot eyes from staring at screens. He entered the room, nodded to two executives passing by, forced a smile, sat at his desk, opened his laptop, took a deep breath. Another day, more decisions, more pressure. And then, he saw it. A folded white paper. Simple. Right on top of his keyboard. James frowned, picked it up, opened it. The handwriting was simple, almost childlike. Blue pen. But the words made his world stop. Mr. Whittaker. My name is Sophie. I answered a call at 5:16 this morning. It was from Keller Industries. Germany. Mr. Henry Keller called. He said you have until 6 to confirm the contract. But he also said something else. He said clauses 7, 9, and 12 are traps. That if you accept without questioning, they'll know you didn't read it right. That they'll take advantage. But if you renegotiate now, before 6, they'll respect you. He said he's testing you. That's how it works. I don't know if I did the right thing answering the phone. I don't know if I did the right thing writing this. But I thought you needed to know. Sorry for touching your stuff. Sophie. James read it once, then again, then a third time. His heart raced. He grabbed the black folder. The one next to the laptop. Flipped it open quickly. Page 4, item 7. He read slowly. Every word, every comma. Then item 9, and 12. And suddenly, he saw it. All there, hidden in technical language, complex legal terms, the progressive penalties that would start small but grow exponentially. The clause transferring partial operational control to Keller. The paragraph capping his profit margins in certain scenarios. How had he missed this? He'd been CEO for 15 years. Reviewed hundreds of contracts. How had he let it slip? James felt his blood run cold. If he'd signed that, if he hadn't seen this note, the company would have profited the first year. Maybe the second, but the third, the fourth, it would have been eaten alive. He looked at the clock. 6:47 a.m. Too late. The deadline had passed at 6. Or had it? James picked up the phone. Dialed Henry Keller's direct line. 3 rings. 4. 5. Then the voice. Calm. Like he'd been waiting. James. Good morning, Henry. It's me. We need to talk. I figured you'd call. James took a deep breath. I saw them. The clauses. Items 7, 9, and 12. Silence. Then Henry asked, and you know exactly what they are. Traps. Tests. You were testing me. I was. Why? Henry sighed. Because 68 million euros isn't a game, James. We needed to know if you were just lucky, or a real leader. Someone who reads between the lines. Someone who protects his company. James gripped the phone tighter. So the 6 o'clock deadline, that was a test too. No, the deadline was real. The board voted at 6. But, Henry paused. They voted yes. Conditional on your response. And you knew I'd figure it out. I didn't know, but I hoped. James looked at the note again. At that simple handwriting. Those honest words. Henry, who's Sophie? A pause on the other end. Then Henry laughed. Soft. Genuine. That's a good question. When I called this morning, I wanted to talk to you. But a 17-year-old girl answered. The cleaning lady's daughter. She was there because her mom had no one to watch her. And she listened. took notes, and left that message for you." James felt something tighten in his chest. "The cleaning lady's daughter saved my deal. She saved more than that, James. She saved your company." James closed his eyes. How many times had Maria cleaned that floor? How many times had he walked past her without saying good morning? How many times had he not even noticed she existed? And her daughter, a girl who shouldn't even have been there, had done what none of his executives had. She'd paid attention. "We need to renegotiate those 3 clauses," James said. His voice steady now. "I already have the revised terms on my screen. Sending them in 10 minutes. 2 hours later, the contract was signed. 68 million euros. But with fair terms. Balanced. Respectful. James saved the company. But he knew. It hadn't been him. 3 days later, Maria was cleaning the same hallway. Same marble floor. Same movements as always. She hadn't told anyone about that morning. Neither had Sophie mentioned it again. They'd gone back to routine. Like nothing had happened. But then, a voice behind her. "Excuse me." Maria turned. James Whittaker stood there. Navy suit. Hands in pockets. Looking at her. Really looking. Maria's heart raced. She dropped the rag. Stood up quickly. "Mr. Whittaker. Did something happen? Did I do something wrong?" James shook his head. "No, you didn't do anything wrong." He stepped closer. "You're Sophie's mom." Maria froze. Eyes wide. How did he know? She nodded slowly. Voice low. "Yes, sir." James smiled. Tired, but real. Sincere. "She saved my company. And I think, she doesn't even know it." Maria blinked. "Sir, I told her not to touch anything. She shouldn't have answered the phone. I'm so sorry if—" "No." James interrupted gently but firmly. "Don't apologize. She did exactly what she was supposed to do. And I should have done something a long time ago." Maria didn't understand. James continued. "How long have you worked here?" 14 years, sir." 14 years. James repeated. Shook his head. "And I never asked your name. Never really looked at you. Never thanked you for the work you do. That embarrasses me." Maria's eyes filled with tears. James extended his hand. "Nice to meet you, Maria. And thank you for raising a daughter like yours. For teaching her to do the right thing even when no one's watching." Maria shook his hand, hers still damp from cleaner. Rough, tired, but James didn't mind. He held her hand with respect. Like she mattered. Because she did. 2 months later, Sophie was sitting at the small kitchen table in their apartment. Doing homework. Old table. Squeaky chair. Maria came home from work. Holding a white envelope. "Sophie, this came for you today." It was at the front desk. Sophie frowned. Took the envelope. Thick, expensive paper. She opened it. Inside, a letter. She started reading. "Dear Sophie, it is with great pleasure that we inform you that you have been selected to receive a full scholarship to study business administration at the State University. All costs will be covered, including tuition, materials, and transportation allowance. This scholarship is sponsored by the Whittaker Foundation, in recognition of your integrity, courage, and commitment to making a difference. Welcome to your future." Sophie read it 3 times. Then a 4th. Her hands shook. Maria stood beside her, reading over her shoulder, crying. "Mom, is this real?" Maria hugged her daughter tight. "It's real, baby. It's real." Sophie held the letter to her chest. And for the first time, she understood. It doesn't matter where you're born. It doesn't matter how much money your parents have. It doesn't matter if you clean floors or sit at the big desk. What matters is who you choose to be when no one's watching. What matters is the courage to do the right thing. Even when you're scared. Even when it's not your responsibility. Even when no one will ever know. Because sometimes, one choice, one act of courage, can open doors you didn't even know existed. And it all starts when you decide to answer. Even when you don't know what's on the other end. Even when you're not sure you're ready. Even when you don't know if it'll make a difference. Because sometimes, the difference doesn't come from the person with the most power. It comes from the person with the most heart. And in that small apartment, in that simple kitchen, in that hug between mother and daughter, the future was being rewritten. One word at a time, one call at a time, one life at a time, all because a girl named Sophie decided to answer.